Welcome, everybody. I would like to begin by thanking everyone for taking time out of their day to join us on this webinar for ImageLab. My name is Ben Wong. I've been a member of the Bio-Rad technical support team for over 4.5 years, supporting our imaging instrumentation product line. I am currently the specialist for our imaging software, including ImageLab. And I'm very excited to be here today to share with you some of the interesting and useful features of our imaging software. ImageLab is our one-dimensional gel analysis software, which works in conjunction with our GelDoc and our ChemiDoc instruments to both capture images as well as perform image analysis on those captured images. This is an extremely simple to use and user-intuitive software designed to make image capture a simple task. The title of our webinar today is ImageLab, Learn the Basics from the Experts. And our goal today is to introduce to you the ImageLab software and to have you follow a few simple steps to become successful in capturing high quality images from your experiments. And we will achieve this by following the list below. First, we will go over software basics. We will cover key features that are available in this software. We will cover software controls and review important functions in the toolbars and menus. Next, we will demonstrate the creation of a protocol and capturing images with that protocol. Some of the important parameters to keep in mind during protocol creation is your image type, your image size, and the signal strength that you expect to see from your images, as this will ultimately define the protocol that you create. Last, we will conclude this webinar by performing basic image analysis on images that we have captured. This will provide you with a good foundation to image analysis in which you can build upon as you become more and more familiar with the software. Okay, so let's begin this demonstration. I want to open up my ImageLab software here. And the first window that you will see upon entering ImageLab is our startup page. Now, I like to think of this as the entryway into our software, as it shows two of the main features of ImageLab. On the top left here, we have our protocol section. Now, protocols are a very important concept in ImageLab. Because ImageLab is a protocol-based software, each image captured requires the use of a protocol. A protocol is essentially a set of parameters which serves as instructions for the software while acquiring images. We will spend quite a bit of time on this later on in our webinar. Okay, moving down below, we have the option to open a previously captured or saved image for analysis. Moving over to the right, we have our recent protocols and recent image files section. So this allows you quick access to the recent items that's been opened for analysis or for any downstream application you may need. Okay, moving down below, we have our tutorials button. If I were to click on the tutorials button, the ImageLab tutorials appear. Now, whether you're a first-time user to ImageLab or if you're a seasoned user, coming back here for a bit of refresher is always a good idea. I find myself coming back here often to look at different videos that's available under these video tutorials. Always a good place to check back for some of the functionalities. So I'm going to close that out and I will close the startup page. Okay, so moving on to the upper level menus, we have our file menu. So if you click on the file, in addition to the traditional file options here, we see an export button. Now, being able to export images in ImageLab is very important. ImageLab also allows you to export in multiple file formats depending on your downstream applications. Now, we will cover this in great detail later on in our webinar. Okay, moving over to the right, we have the imager selection window. Now you can select your default imager or you can change parameters to your imager here. Okay, moving over. Now for our customers who require regulatory CFR Part 21 compliance, we have a security version for you here that you can inquire about. Moving over to the right, we have our help section. And I also like to come to this section because there is a comprehensive guide to operating ImageLab using the GelDoc or ChemiDoc imagers. And this guide allows you to perform keyword searches, which is great because you can pinpoint sections that you need in this vast guide here to be able to help you during analysis. For example, if you wanted to look up calculating standards or standard curves or looking at uh, quantity quantification, you can come here and take a look at those as well. Okay, I'm going to close this out. Okay, moving down below, we have our main toolbar. The file management buttons are located right here. Moving over to the right, we have our results data tabs here. Now, these four icons are used strictly for analysis, and we'll cover this in detail a little bit later in our webinar. Last but not least, we have our tutorials button, and we also have our startup page, which we talked about just earlier. Okay, so moving down below, we have our analysis toolbox. Now you can see the icons are grayed out over here, and that is because we don't have any images open in ImageLab. Once we capture some images, we can perform some simple analysis using the analysis tools here. Okay, so for now, I want to go back to our startup page, and I want to click on New under Protocols to create a new protocol. Okay, I'm going to maximize this window. So this screen will become familiar to you as you start creating protocols. Now you can see that there are four main parameters required: the application, the imaging area, image exposure, and display options. So we will work our way from the top to the bottom over here. Under the application, there's a select button. So if I click on that, a floating menu appears. And if I ran an agarose gel with a lithium bromide stain, that's perfect. That's what I will select. So these protocols are pre-programmed into ImageLab to make it easy for the users to select some of the more commonly used applications. So if you stained with cyber dyes, go ahead and select that. Gel red, gel green, they're here. If you're working with a protein gel and you want to perform a chromacy or copper or zinc stain, you can do that here. Some of the fluorescent stains are located here, and Cipro Ruby, other stains are here as well. Now, if you own one of our ChemiDoc imagers and you want to look at a Western or a chemiluminescent image, we have some pre-programmed applications for you here. Colorimetric blots are available for imaging here as well as Q dots and some of our fluorescence dyes here. Now, if you look through the list and you do not find a pre-programmed application for your custom assay, then you can create one here. So you see that I created a few here, but all you would need to do is click on Manage Custom Applications and click on New, and you can enter an application name and tell the instrument what type of light source, what type of filters you would like to use. So this does require you to know something about that particular stain or your particular dye, but it's simple to program, as you can see here. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of that. So for today's demonstration, we will go with a simple nucleic acid gel stained with lithium bromide. And as you can see, once I've made that selection, lithium bromide is confirmed as the application here. Filter is pre-selected, as well as the light source. Okay, moving over here to the right, you'll see that ImageLab is telling us to place the sample directly on the UV transilluminator. Okay, good. Moving down below now, we have our imaging area. Now, the gels comes in all different shapes and sizes. If you cast your own gel, or if you purchase a precast gel from us, the imaging area is somewhere you can select the gel size that you want to start with. Now, you can always change this or modify this gel size imaging area once you start capturing your image or prior to image capture. You have the option to do that. So this serves as a good starting point. So if you click on the drop-down menu, we have conveniently added all of our gels available here for you. And let's go ahead and select the Bio-Rad Mini Really Agros gel. So if you select these pre-programmed gels, the imaging area automatically appears down here for you. And so if you have your own gels or if you cast your own gels, you can manually enter the imaging area size. No problem. Okay, I'll stick with this one for today. Okay, moving down below, we have our image exposure selection. Now, I tell customers that this is the most important parameter for a protocol, because if you ran a high resolution gel and you stained it perfectly, but you missed the mark on image exposure time, your gel may be oversaturated. And saturating your gel is always a bad idea because what it does is it severely limits your dynamic range. And it's the dynamic range that's available to these CCD instruments that allows you to make good relative comparisons between your samples. And so you really don't want to limit your dynamic range because of overexposure. Okay, so ImageLab has this automatic optimization for image exposure for you. So there are two different options. There's a option for intense bands and one for faint bands. So for applications in which you're likely to get more intense bands, we recommend you go with intense bands. For example, our lithium bromide gel, we're likely to see more intense bands. Now, if you're running a Western or a Chemi, and you may see faint bands, you want to go with that one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and select this. Down below here, we have you can also manually set your exposure time. So for example, if you're running a Western and yesterday you exposed for 1 minute and you want to have the same exposure today, maybe you stripped your blot and you want to reprobe, you can manually set your exposure time here. Okay, that's always an option. Okay, moving down below, we have our display options. Now you can see that the highlight saturated pixels is checked by default. Now I strongly recommend that you leave it checked because this serves as an excellent safeguard for instances where you have saturated pixels. So if this selection, if checked, what ImageLab will do is look for saturated pixels. If there are any saturated pixels in your image, that pixel will be displayed in bright red. And so if you see your image after you capture it and half the image is red, that means you've severely overexposed and you really want to decrease the exposure time to optimize that image. So I really like it to be checked. I always have it checked for my purposes. Moving over to the right over here, we have our image color. Now, there are a list of colors here. This does not change the way the instrument is going to capture your image. It's purely for display and appearance purposes. So you can choose any color you want. I typically like to go with the gray. Okay, so all of the 4 parameters here has been met. If you look over to the right here, I'm sorry, to the left, you'll see that you also have the option to preset for image analysis and also for output. Now, we recommend that you capture your image first and then you detect your lane and bands and perform analysis separately because each image is slightly different. So it requires you to really tweak your analysis a bit. But if you're performing a high throughput assay in which maybe you have 10 gels with the same well format, same type of samples, you may want to set up this analysis and output automatically. That way, in one shot, you can get everything performed. But for our demo here, I will capture and perform analysis separately. Okay, so at this point, we are ready to proceed, and we will click on Position Gel. Now, ImageLab is asking me, telling me actually, a ChemiDoc XRS Plus was not found. Do I wish to run in simulation? Now, because an instrument is not connected to my to my computer over here, I get this image. But on your end, with a computer or with an imager connected to the computer, you won't see this message. What you will see here is the live image that the imager is capturing. Now, what I see here right off the bat is there are a series of blue concentric rectangles here. These are our alignment grids, and this purpose of these grids is to allow you to to position your gel, your blot perpendicular, and so that the lanes run up and down. So the more accurate or the more correctly positioned they are here, the easier it is for you to perform downstream analysis. Defining your lane and bands becomes easier if it's positioned correctly here. Now, if this is something that you don't like, or if you're capturing an image that don't have lanes, you can go ahead and get rid of the alignment grids by deselecting it here. The alignment grids will not show up in your image, so you really don't have to worry about that being in your final image. I like to leave it on. Now, moving below here, you can see that there's the camera zoom. So this allows you to really change the image size, okay? And as you can see, we can zoom in and out quite a bit here. And something else that you'll notice is while I'm zooming, my gel, the data on my gel stays intact, stays focused. And that's because our imagers, they come with automatic focusing, which makes it easier and faster for you to capture images. Okay, so once I've settled on a image size that I like, I can go ahead and run the protocol. Okay, so within about a second here, you see that ImageLab has determined the optimal exposure time and captured your image for you. Now, the first thing that I like to do after capturing an image, which I may end up keeping, is to save it to my computer. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll click on File and then click on Save. Now, as you can see, ImageLab permits you to save the file by default as a .scn file. Now, because ImageLab does not require each user to obtain their own software license, it has been designed to work with proprietary file formats. Now, in addition to saving just the image data, an ImageLab file will also capture additional metadata associated with this image. So this includes the exposure time, instrument settings, the data range, and any additional parameters that may be available to save. And I do like this feature because the embedded information can become extremely useful to recall down the line. So I will go ahead and save this image here as didymium bromide. Today is the 30th. Getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so I'll save it there. Okay, so once I've saved my image onto my computer, then I have the option to export. And let me show you quickly here the different type of export functions. So as you can see here, you have the option to export it as a more familiar file type to you. For example, a TIFF, a JPEG, a PNG, or a bitmap. But if you don't initially save the image as a default file format, then when you come back to the software next time, you will no longer be able to open it and view that image. And so the best practice here is for you to save your image right after you capture it, as we just did, and then perform image analysis on that image. And if you would like, you export the image as a desired file type for downstream applications. So this will ensure that you always have a good copy or a copy of the image file to come back to if additional analysis is required. And we will discuss in detail more of the different options and the ways you can export images in ImageLab later on in our presentation. Okay, so I'll go ahead and cancel this for now and cancel out of that. So we have our image here on our desktop, and what we can do here is adjust the appearance a bit to optimize it to our liking. Now, we're not going to change any data that's been collected because it's not possible to do that once an image has been collected. But you can change the appearance or the way the image looks to you to fine-tune it to what you would like prior to analysis. So we have a series of tools up here that allows you to do that. Now, starting with the Display Gel Options tool, it allows you the option to show annotation or to show different lane and band features. You can hide them, you can show all of them. So that's somewhere you can come to if you want to customize the way your gel is displayed after we finish analysis. So now we have our magnifying glass. You can zoom in on your image a bit. Now you can take a closer look at whether you've captured all of the bands or all of the signal you would like from your gel by zooming in. You can also zoom out as well. And if you want to go back to the original size, you can always resize. Okay, moving over, we have our image transform button. Clicking on the transform button reveals a image transform box here. Now I can adjust the brightness. I can adjust the contrast, or I can adjust the gamma, which adjusts brightness and contrast together. So this allows you one more opportunity to take a good look at your gel to see if you've missed any bands, to see if anything's faint. Now, if you've accidentally made the image worse than it was before, you can always auto-scale it back to what it was prior to all of your adjustments. Okay, down below we have some options here. There's a invert image display box. If I click on that, you can see the image has been inverted. Now, if you're planning to print this image out to put into your lab notebook, this would be the better option because you're going to save a bit of toner, a bit of ink, and that's always a good idea. So we'll go ahead and leave it here. Highlight saturated pixels still on. That's a good sign. Now, I don't see any red pixels here, which tells me that none of my pixels have gone to saturation. So that's always a good sign there. Okay, so now that I've selected that, I am ready to move on to the next setting. Okay, so you can also change your image colors. We've touched upon this before. You can change the colors as you wish, but the data, the raw data, will not be changed. Okay. Okay, so if I push on this 3D viewer, ImageLab will render a 3D view of our image, of our gel, of our blot. And what I really like about this tool is that I can slide this toolbar below. I can get a really good view of my signal to really get a good idea of whether I've gotten everything that I really want out of my image. Serves as a very good check for me here. Okay, and obviously I'm interested in these bands here, and so I think everything I want is here. It's good. Moving over, we have our image info tab. So I click on that, all of the image information is here. So this is the metadata that I was talking to you guys about earlier. It tells you the type of image it was captured on, the exposure time, which is very important. It looks like it's a 1 second exposure time. The software version, the imaging area, pixel size, data range. So all important data to have. You can click on the analysis settings tab. Now we haven't performed any analysis, so this is empty. You can also add notes to this image to give you a reminder of what it actually was. So these are all options you have under the image info tab, which is great. Okay, so after we have optimized our image for the appearance, we're ready to perform some simple analysis. So now looking over at our analysis toolbox, I see a series of tools. So we will work our way from the top to the bottom. So under imaging tools here, you have the option to flip your image if you captured it incorrectly, or if you were required to capture it on maybe the other side. You can flip it vertically as well. You can perform rotations as needed, but our gel was captured correctly, so I'm going to leave it as that. Now, I do like to crop the image a bit though, because there is some extra spacing that I don't need. So I can just move this red box to include everything that I need. And that will be great. Okay, That's good. And I can confirm the crop by right-clicking on the button on my mouse and clicking crop. Okay, so you see all the excess bits of image has been cropped out. So this is good. And you also have the option to invert your data if you need to. This will basically invert the information of your captured image. Okay, so for some applications that may be required, but not here. You also have the option to merge images. This will be covered in a subsequent webinar. If you need to merge two images together, you can do that here as well. But since we only have one image, there's no need to do that. Okay, so we will go and proceed with the next icon here, lane and bands. So this function or this icon allows you to define your lane and bands. Now, ImageLab has a lane finder tool, which I find to be very useful. So if I click on this guy, you can see it automatically detected the number of lanes I need. Now, if I had 10 lanes here, I can go back to the manual mode here and I can just type in 10. And this operation will delete the existing lanes. Okay, that's fine. So you see it now I have 10 lanes, and you can move these lanes any way you want to fit what you need. Okay, so a lot of options for you here. I'll go back to the automatic, and we'll find my nine different lanes. As you can see, we're missing a bit of the length of this lane, and so what I'll do is I will click on the resize button to include everything, and to make sure all of my bands are within these red lines, because that is what ImageLab will use for calculations. Okay, and if I needed to bend my lanes, I can do that as well. There's a tool for that. Okay, let's move it back. Here we go. So the lanes look good. Now it's time for band detection. Similarly to lane detection, we also have an automatic band finder, so you can click on that to detect the bands. Sensitivity selection. So there are a few different options here. The low detection sensitivity is for more prominent bands. For example, these bands right here. That's what I'm interested in. So if I go with low sensitivity, I should be able to detect these bands. Let's try it. Okay, so you see these pink lines here? That means ImageLab has acknowledged that these are sample bands that I want, which is good. Now, in my ladder here, though, I know there are more bands. It looks a little blurry, but there are more bands here. So I want ImageLab to redetect bands in this lane. So I can go back and change it to high sensitivity for more faint bands, and I can change it to apply to only a selected lane, which is my first lane here. So if I click on detect, I see that ImageLab has detected extra bands for me. However, these are not bands, I'm sure. So what I can do is I can go back to my band tool. I can delete these pretty easily here. Get rid of all these excess bands. Okay, so now that's been taken care of. There's also an add band feature. If I want to include these bands, I can simply just click them and add them to my analysis. I'm not going to do that here, so remove all that. Okay, so lane and bands have been detected. Good. Moving down below, we can look at molecular weight analysis a bit here. So I will click on this tool, and the first thing that ImageLab wants you to define is the actual standard. Which standard did you use? Now, I know for a fact that our Precision Plus standard is a protein standard, so that's not going to work. In fact, this is the 20 base pair molecular ruler, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to select OK. Now, ImageLab wants me to designate which lane is my standard. I'm going to designate this lane here. And do I want to redetect? No, I do not, because I just spent time doing that before. Okay, so you see that ImageLab has determined the different molecular weight based on this predefined band. Now, you may ask the question, well, what if the standard that I need, what if I didn't purchase a standard from you and I have my own standard? Well, you could do that here by adding a new standard, and you can select whether it's a protein or a DNA standard, and you can add your values and you can add them that way. So you can have your own custom ladder, which is which is good and necessary. Okay, so I'm going to close this out for now. No, I don't want to redetect. Okay, so at this point, we have some information here that we can look at. Now, if I click on the analysis table, what ImageLab will do is put all of this information in a tabulated form. Okay, so as you can see in lane number 1, this is our standard lane. Everything here is in bold, and that means these are points, or these are values that's been that was inputted by the user to determine other information. Okay, so in lane number 1, that's the case here. And what we're really interested in are these bands in lanes number 2 through 9, I believe. So you can scroll through here, and you can see that based on the calculations in our standard lane, this band here is 98.7 base pairs. And lane number 3, it's 101. So we're starting to get some good information here, which is good. Okay, now you have the option to do a few things here. You can display it up and down, so the different lanes will go up and down in that manner, or you can export this entire table into Excel. And in Excel, you'll have a comprehensive table with all the information here. If you want to perform some downstream analysis, it's definitely possible to do that. Let's go back to our image lab here. Okay, so that's always good. Okay, and we can always take a look at some other data tab here. There's a lane profile tab. If I click on that, what ImageLab will display is a sort of a side profile or side view of your lanes. So this is our data lane. This is our standard lane. If I click on the image next to it, or not the image next to it, but the next lane over, it shows that this is our detected band in lane number 2. Okay, so I like this lane profile tool because it gives you another opportunity to look at your lane to see if there are any other bands which you may want. I see a little blip here and a little blip there. It's not detected in our analysis, but you can always go back and add that as a band if needed. And if you highlight over the lanes or the band that's been detected, then you will be able to see all the information that ImageLab has captured for it. Okay, so you can also scroll through each of the bands here, which is a good tool. Now the standard curve is displayed here. So it's on a point-to-point semi-log standard curve, and the formula is automatically calculated for you. And so basically this standard curve shows all the different bands in your standards, and the red diamond here shows you where your current sample or current lane, where the data is interpolated from. And so always good to have. If you need a standard curve, you can always take a screenshot and you can export it out into any other files that you may need into Microsoft, into any other sort of features. So screenshot button is here and it allows you to do that. Okay, if I click on the screenshot, I can export a standard curve window onto the clipboard into any sort of files you would need. Okay, also very, very good tool. One of my favorite tool here though is the report. So if I click on that, you can see that ImageLab will display a very comprehensive report. And it's going to have the acquisition information, analysis settings, and everything else. And you can change the parameters of this report by going into the options menu here and including things or taking things out. These are all possible. Once you select OK, ImageLab will generate the report, so you'll have the most up-to-date one. Okay, and you can print it for your lab notebook. You can save it for online archiving. So a lot of different options here. Okay, so now that we have pretty good data, we did some simple analysis, let's go ahead and save this image. So we'll go ahead and save it once again. And now ImageLab has everything that we've done thus far. Now if I look at the information tab, you can see that we've done some analysis, and ImageLab has recorded everything that we've done in terms of analysis. Okay, so let's at this point visit the export function a bit. So I'll click on File and I'll click on Export. Now, under the export function, there are a few different options. Okay, you can export for publication, you can export for analysis, you can export for PulseNet uploads, or you can export each lane and band table to Excel as we've done before. We've shown you that just a little bit before there. So let's start with the publication. So if you export for publication, you have the option to export in either 300 dpi or 600 dpi, or you can specify the resolution you want. But you do want to be aware that if you click on if you go up on resolution, the size of your image increase exponentially. Okay, so that's always something to keep in mind there. And you can export it and as a TIFF, JPEG, or any other format you would need. Okay, so that's for a publication. Now, if you want to export for analysis, then you would select this. And because for analysis, ImageLab wants to maintain or keep all of the raw data, no compression, a TIFF format is the only format that's allowed. And so if you export for analysis, it's going to automatically export your image as a 16-bit TIFF file for analysis elsewhere. If you use ImageJ, or if you want to go with some other sort of imaging analysis software, you can do that here. Okay, and if you want to export for PulseNet uploads, you can do that as well. It's also going to be exported as a TIFF file. For PulseNet uploads, it's going to be the 8-bit format. So it's going to be preset for you to export for that function as well. Okay, so I saved this image already, so I can go ahead and close it. Now this protocol it's shown on the background here. Now I do like this protocol quite a bit because it was resulting in a good image, and so I want to save this protocol as well. So I will go to Save, and we will name this protocol here. Let's see. Oops. We'll name it DNA. Oops. 1030. Lithium bromide. Okay. I can save that, and now I can close this protocol. So if I go back to the startup page, you can see that the most recent image file and the most recent protocol is displayed in this window. And if I want to capture a different image, I can open up this protocol immediately and start image capture if I needed to. If I want to make modifications, not an issue. I click on gel imaging and I can make changes as necessary. Okay. Okay, so with that, we will end the demonstration of our ImageLab software that we have prepared for you today. So let's go back and take a look at what we have covered. So we started by looking at how to create, save, and modify protocols. We went over the parameters that are necessary for image capture. We modified the appearance of images for applications, for analysis. We looked at simple molecular weight analysis, and we ended by generating image reports and also looking at exporting of these images for downstream applications. So you should now have a pretty good feel of the basic features available in ImageLab, as well as protocol creation and image capture. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any additional questions for us, please feel free to contact our technical support department at 1-800-424-6723, and we'll want to select option 2 for tech support, or shoot us an email at support@bio-rad.com. I appreciate your attention. Have a wonderful day.